It's Friday, January 5th. This is an end of the day, an end of the week SPY recap. And today on the daily chart, we end up with another two-down day that really didn't follow through all that much, but it certainly wasn't a strong reversal looking day to the upside. And it was very similar to a lot of the days we've been experienced this week, where price would go up a little bit, be choppy, and eventually kind of move to the downside. In this case, we closed a little bit green. Yesterday, we closed a little bit red, and we will see what that means going into next week. What I'm looking at now on the weekly chart, we had a two-down week that reached its target. There was a little bit of a buying tail in here. But right now, what I'm kind of monitoring is kind of the halfway point of this week. This red bar you would normally think should follow through a little lower and at least test that low and maybe, go a lot lower. Kind of like on this uptrend here, when you have the green up weeks, we stayed above the midpoint of that bar, went higher. This green, we stayed above the midpoint, went higher, stayed above the midpoint, higher, midpoint higher. This one went, but at that point, a little exhaustion risk. I remember there was some consolidation here, but we generally try to go lower, but then came higher, above the midpoint higher. So if this is going to continue lower, I'm going to feel comfortable. We're going to stay below the midpoint here and continue red, and we'll just see week after week, if that unfolds. But there also could be a reversal to the upside, and we're waiting for, we're watching that. But I'm going to use that level right now as kind of a key area to see, and that happens to align with these two highs of the last 2 days, generally somewhere up in here. So market's really going to have to break out above there in some form, fail going down, and if it does come up, then get through that area. And until I really see a weekly reversal, I'm going to be biased to the downside, given that the opening price action at this purple line for the year and the month and the quarter and everything else is, down. So even if we get above the halfway point there, we're really going to have to turn this, weekly chart green in some way. Or maybe next week we'll get a two down big hammer bar, and that'll give us the signal that we're likely getting a two up week to test those highs again. So that's what I'm going to watch for as the week unfolds. In terms of today, the only thing I can say is if we go to the 15-minute chart, again, we opened up near the lows of the previous day, wide range. There was an economic number and price immediately went down, but then it really rallied pretty strongly towards the open. First bar went up above the pre-market high, paused a little bit, and bar 2 or 3, we started higher. So there was definitely an intraday upward bias again. That was kind of below the halfway point of the prior day. Very similar to yesterday. We went up early in the session, and eventually rolled over to the downside. Same thing happened here. Now on the upside today, there were actually a bunch of good stocks to trade. I traded Moderna in a big way to the upside right out of the gates, and also AMD, I believe. Where is that? Out of the gate. So I was looking for individual stocks that had the best kind of continuity, the upside, and it was a great morning trade to the upside, even though they all kind of paused and then eventually didn't have a secondary move to the upside. But that's why, again, with my method, I'm always looking for that morning move to start, and then I see if there's maybe a secondary move to test those highs again, or if there's a big failure. And in this case, once the market came down, once this was a pretty big pullback bar, then once I saw it continuing here and here and here, at this point, I really suspected on this red bar that the SPY was not making an orderly pullback to test those highs again. I thought it should take out that intraday low, and it did, and then it tried again. Then we had the little chop, it rally up, then we took out the low again, and we came up. This is all choppiness in here. But if you're just going to look at the only trade that was even with the downward continuity that's still in play in the big picture, it would be a failure up here that came down, and right here you kind of suspected this low would be taken out. And I actually traded Microsoft at that point in time, and I shot videos because that one I just liked the taking out this low with some targets down here, and eventually it just moved lower for the rest of the day. So that was the only trade. Now if you wanted to buy it right out of the gates here, you had to kind of know you're going against the continuity, but maybe, you're seeing if you get some kind of strong reversal. And if nothing else, you got a decent enough move to scale out and take some small gains one way or the other before this reversal if you wanted to do it, or at least, do no worse than break even. But, not necessarily an easy day to trade. But coming into the day, just as a final thought, there was no real actionable signal. I mean, we're going down, down, down. So it's just continuation on a Friday. So it's not like coming into the day, I'm all that excited to even trade the SPY. I was just using it as a reference point, on that up move to start. I found stocks that moved up nicely. And then once I saw failures, I know we're in kind of a downward movement. We're going to probably end the week red here on the weekly chart. And that when I see this red bar, I kind of expect those lows to be tested. So, it was going to close the week kind of leading into, downward expectations into next week a little bit, even though we could hold in here and reverse. But until we see that now, I'm going to be biased to the downside. There was no, and even tomorrow, there's no real actionable, or Monday, there's no real actionable signal. I mean, we're just down, down, down. The actionable signal would be a failure to the upside that then starts down, and then we know we're really taking out that, or some kind of a move like this on the weekly chart where we saw a 2 down developing coming into the year, and we had targets down there. Those were the great actionable signals, either, on this time frame. And on this time frame, it's just been kind of choppiness, and I've discussed it all week, all the way down. So you kind of have to know the environment you're in a little bit, and there are opportunities both on the upside and downside, with different sectors and different stocks. And the SPY itself, there's nothing, that really wants to get you to the long side, but price is certainly, being very volatile as it moves lower. So anyway, that kind of ends this for now. I want to come into next week. Monday, I don't really know what to expect. This doesn't look like a reversal bar, and yet there's no actionable signal to the downside. So I'll go whichever way it goes. I'll be prepared for this weekly chart to possibly reverse and head up. There's still big picture targets above. But, I also know we can continue lower first, especially after this red bar. So, it's just day by day kind of thing. Once a good actionable signal unfolds next week, somewhat one way or the other, we'll point that out, and then you can get really aggressive. But for now, it's more just kind of going with the flow, knowing kind of what's going on, some of the key areas. Got to get above this yellow line, the midpoint of that, stay below that to continue lower. And if we get above that, we really got to take out this purple line, to get everything back to green. So keep, those levels, and you're just going to have to kind of trade it until some real strong signal, develops one way or the other. Meanwhile, it's been decent trading all week, if you kind of just, you're patient and you kind of understand the environment. So let's just see. Main thing is we got the 2 down week coming into the year. That was kind of what we expected after this, narrow week up here. And we talked about that at the year-end video, and we're heading lower. So let's just see, how much red might want to unfold, and then where it goes. And then, of course, where it may reverse. So that's it, and we will kind of see how things open on Monday.